A very small village. There was a woman named Iyadamo. She sold food and was known for making the best meals in the village. Every day, many people came to her shop to buy her food. Her shop was always full of people waiting in line. Iyadamo's food was so tasty that no one could resist. People said her food had a special flavor that made it different from the other food in the village. Because of this, everyone wanted her food. But there was something strange about how she served her meals. Whenever a customer ordered food, Iyadamo would serve it on a plate. She would then take the food inside a small room at the back of her shop. She would tell the customer to wait while she went inside. This was quite unusual. Most people thought it was strange. They even wondered why she needed to take the food into the room. Was she adding extra spices or something else? But no one knew. Iyadamo did this every day. No matter how many people were waiting, she would always take the food inside, and it made some customers curious. But since her food was delicious, no one complained. They just waited patiently. One day, a young woman named Ngozi started to think about this. She was very curious and wanted to know why Iyadamo took the food into the room. She wondered if there was a secret behind the tasty food. Ngozi decided to find out Iyadamo was doing in that small room. She thought to herself, there must be a reason why she always takes this food inside. And so, Ngozi's curiosity began to grow. She wanted to discover the truth about Iyadamo's strange habits. Ngozi was very curious about the strange habit. She couldn't stop thinking about it. Why does she always take the food inside? Ngozi wondered. She thought it was very odd, and her curiosity only grew stronger as the days goes by. Ngozi, who often ate Iyadamo's food because it was delicious, but every time she saw Iyadamo take the food inside the room, she felt a bit uneasy. She wanted to know what was happening in that small room. Was there something special that Iyadamo was doing, or was it for another reason? One day, Ngozi decided to talk to her friend Amina about it. Amina was also a very big fan of Iyadamo's food. Ngozi found Amina at her home and asked, Amina, don't you think it's strange that Iyadamo always takes the food into the room before giving it to us? Amina looked puzzled. It is strange, she said, but I don't really care. Her food is so good, and I just want to eat. I'm not worried about what she does inside the room. As long as she gives me food to eat, I beg. Ngozi was not satisfied with Amina's answer. She wanted to find out the truth. Don't you think we should try to find out what is happening? Ngozi asked. Amina wasn't sure. I don't know, she replied. It sounds like a lot of trouble. But Ngozi was determined. She kept insisting, we need to know what's going on. It could be important. Finally, Amina agreed to help Ngozi. All right, she said. If you really want to find out, then I will help you. Ngozi felt excited. She knew that finding out the truth would not be easy, but she was ready to take the next step. And so, with Amina's help, Ngozi started to make a plan to uncover the secret behind Iyadamo's strange habits. Ngozi and Amina talked more about their plan. Ngozi was very eager to find out why Iyadamo always took the food into the small room. She thought that something important might be happening there. Amina, on the other hand, was not excited. She loved Iyadamo's food and didn't really care about the strange habits. I just want to enjoy the food, Amina said. I don't think it's worth all this trouble. But Ngozi was persistent. Come on now, Amina. We should find out. What if there's something going on that we do not know? Alright, no problem. If it really bothers you, I will help you. Ngozi was happy to hear this. She knew that it would be better to have Amina's help. They needed to find out what Iyadamo was doing in that small room. The two friends began to make plans. They decided that they would need more information to figure out the mystery. They thought about asking someone who worked for Iyadamo. Maybe the workers knew something about what happened inside the room. Ngozi and Amina waited for the next day when they would visit Iyadamo's shop. They hoped to find the answers and uncover the secret behind the strange habit. Amina was still a bit hesitant, but she agreed to help Ngozi with the investigation. Ngozi was excited because she was ready to find out the truth. The plan was set, and they both prepared to get the answers they were looking for. The next day, Ngozi and Amina went to Yadamu's shop. They knew that talking to one of the workers might help them learn about what happened in the small room. When they arrived, Yadamu was busy serving food to the customers. Ngozi and Amina waited for a moment when they could speak to one of the workers alone. They finally had the chance to talk to a young woman who worked for Iyadamu. Ngozi took a deep breath and asked, "Excuse me, do you know why Iyadamu always takes the food into the small room before giving it to us?" The worker looked a little bit surprised. "Oh, that's a good question," she said. "I have wondered about that too. I don't really know why she does it. None of us knows what happens in the room." Amina nodded. "So you don't have any idea what she does in there?" The worker shook her head. "No, we don't. We just serve the food and take it to her when it's time. She always tells us to leave the food with her, so we can't see what she does." Ngozi was disappointed but not ready to give up. "Is there any way you could help us find out?" she asked. "We really want to know what is happening." The worker looked nervous. "I don't think I can help with that," she said. "I don't want to lose my job. I'm afraid of getting into trouble." Ngozi understood the worker's concern, but she didn't want to give up either. She thought for a moment and then offered, "I will give you 100 good coins if you help us. We just need to place a small camera in that room where Iyadamu takes the food." The worker looked hesitant. "Are you sure? It sounds risky." Ngozi assured her, "It's important for us to know, and I promise you won't get into trouble." After some thinking, the worker agreed. "All right," she said. "I will do it, but I will need to set the camera up before Iyadamu arrives." Ngozi and Amina thanked her and waited for the next day. They knew what the camera might give them, the answers they need. The workers promised to help them uncover the mystery. The next morning, Ngozi and Amina waited eagerly for news from the worker. They hoped the camera would reveal the truth about Iyadamu's strange habits. They knew it was a big step, but they were determined to find out what was really happening. The worker arrived early at Iyadamu's shop. She carefully hid the small camera in the room where Iyadamu always took the food. She placed the camera in a spot where it would not be noticed. After setting up the camera, she left the shop before Iyadamu arrived. Ngozi and Amina were excited but anxious. They knew they had to wait for the end of the day to see the footage from the camera. They spent the day talking about what they might discover and imagining different possibilities. When the shop finally closed, Ngozi and Amina met the worker again. The worker handed over the camera, looking nervous but relieved. "I hope you find what you are looking for," she said. Ngozi took the camera and thanked the worker. She promised to give the 100 gold coins as they agreed. The worker left, and Ngozi and Amina went home to review the footage. Once they were at Ngozi's home, they carefully connected the camera to a screen. The video started playing, and they watched in silence, waiting to see what Iyadamu did with the food. As they watched, they saw Iyadamu start her usual routine. She served a plate of food to a customer and took it into the small room. Ngozi and Amina leaned closer to the screen, their hearts racing with curiosity. The camera showed Iyadamu entering the room and placing the food on a table. Then, to their shock, she squatted over the food and farted loudly. After doing this, she took the food out of the room and served it to the customer. Ngozi and Amina was horrified. They couldn't believe they had just seen. Ngozi's face turned pale, and Amina started feeling sick immediately. They realized that they'd been eating Iyadamu's fat all this time. Seriously? Could this ever happen anywhere? The shocking discovery left them stunned. They knew they had to do something about it, but they were still in disbelief. They needed to decide what to do next and how to handle the whole situation. Ngozi and Amina were still in shock after watching the video. Ngozi's hands were shaking as she rewound the footage to make sure she wasn't seeing another thing. The video clearly showed Iyadamu farting on the food before serving it to the customer. Ngozi's mind raced terribly. "Can you believe this?" she asked Amina, her voice trembling. "We've been eating Iyadamu's fat." Amina's face turned white as she watched the footage again. "This is disgusting," she exclaimed. "I can't believe this. But it is just really this." Amina felt a wave of nausea. She had always been a regular customer, enjoying Iyadamu's food every day. The thought of it now made her stomach churn. She started to feel sick and had to sit down. Ngozi knew they had to act quickly. "We need to show this to someone," she said. "We can't let this go on. People need to know what's really in their food." Amina nodded weakly. "Yes, you are right. We have to do something. But if people don't believe us, or what if they get angry?" Ngozi was determined. "We will show them the video and we'll take it to the police. They will investigate and take action. This isn't something we can just ignore." Amina agreed. She knew Ngozi was right. Even if it was a difficult decision, they both knew that they had to bring the truth to light, no matter how shocking it was. Ngozi and Amina prepared to go to the police station. They took the video with them, hoping that the evidence would be enough to convince the authorities. They were anxious about how the police would react, but they knew they had to take the step. As they left Ngozi's house, they both felt a mixture of fear and determination. They were about to reveal a shocking truth that would change everything in that village. They hoped that their action would lead to justice and protect others unknowingly from eating tainted food. The next morning, Ngozi and Amina made their way to the police station. They felt nervous, but they knew they had to take action. The thought of Iyadamu's strange and disgusting practice being uncovered in front of everyone made them uneasy, but they also knew that it was the right thing to do. When they arrived at the police station, they asked to speak to the officer. They were led to a room where a policeman sat behind a desk. He looked at them with curiosity, wondering why they seemed so anxious. Ngozi spoke first, her voice shaky but firm. "Officer, we have something very important to show you. It is about Iyadamu, the woman who sells food in the village." The policeman raised an eyebrow. "Iyadamu? She is well known around here. What is the problem?" Mina took out the camera and placed it on the desk. "We think she's doing something very, very wrong. We have a recorded video to find out what she does to the food before serving it." The officer looked confused, but curious. He took the camera and connected it to the screen to play the video. Ngozi and Amina nervously watched as the footage began to play. As the video showed Iyadamu serving the food and taking it to the small room, the officer watched closely. But when the moment came when Iyadamu squatted over the food and let out a loud fart, the officer's eyes widened in disbelief. He paused the video and looked at Ngozi and Amina. Shocked. "What is this? Are you telling me she's been doing this to everyone's food?" Ngozi nodded. "Yes, officer. That is what we found out. She does this every time she gives the food to her customer." Amina added, "We've been eating her food for long without knowing the truth. Now we know the truth. We have to come to you." The officer leaned back in his chair, trying to process what he had just seen. "This is serious," he said. "If this is true, we have to take action immediately." He stood up and called for other officers to join him. They quickly prepared to head to Iyadamu's shop and confront her. Ngozi and Amina were relieved that the police believed them and were going to investigate. As the officers prepared to leave, the policeman turned to Ngozi and Amina. "Thank you for bringing this to us. We will handle it from here. You have done the right thing." With that, Ngozi and Amina watched as the officers left the station, heading to Iyadamu's shop. They felt a mixture of relief and nervousness, knowing that the truth was about to be revealed to the whole village. What would happen next was uncertain, but they knew that justice was finally on the way. Later that day, Ngozi and Amina nervously waited outside Iyadamu's shop. As the police officers arrived, the shop was busy as usual, with many customers lining up to buy the famous food. The officers approached the shop, and the sight of them made some people curious. They wondered why police were there. Iyadamu was behind the counter, smiling, serving food like any other day. When she saw the police walk in, her smile faded, and she looked confused. "What is going on?" she asked. One of the officers stepped forward, holding the camera. "Iyadamu, we need to talk," he said. "There's something we need to show your customers." The crowd of people inside the shop looked puzzled. Some whispered to each other, wondering what had happened. The officers didn't waste time and quickly connected the camera to a screen on the shop. "Everyone, please watch this video," he announced. As the video started playing, the customers' attention turned to the screen. At first, they saw Iyadamu doing her usual routine, serving food and taking it to the small room. Everything looked normal until the moment where Iyadamu squatted over the food and farted. Gasps filled the shop. Customers stared in shock and disbelief. Some people couldn't believe their eyes, while others covered their mouths in horror. The video played over and over again, showing what Iyadamu had been doing all along. One customer, who had just finished eating, immediately ran out to vomit. Others looked at their plates with disgust, pushing the food away with them. The realization that they've been eating tainted food for so long left everyone sickened and furious. Iyadamu stood frozen in place, her face pale as the crowd turned their angry eyes towards her. "What is this?" shouted one man. "You've been feeding us this? How could you do this to us?" Another customer yelled, "We trusted you. We ate your food every day. How could you fart on it?" The police officers quickly stepped forward and placed handcuffs on Iyadamu. "You are under arrest for contaminating food and putting the health of others at risk," the officer said firmly. Iyadamu started crying and begging for mercy. "Please, I'm not a bad person," she pleaded. "I did it for my son, Adamu. He was very sick. I had no choice." But the crowd wasn't interested in the excuses. They shouted in anger, some demanding that she would be punished severely. Others began to leave the shop in disgust, vowing never to return. As the officers led Iyadamu out of the shop, Ngozi and Amina stood quietly in the background, watching the chaos unfold. They knew they had done the right thing, but they couldn't help feeling sorry for Iyadamu. Still, justice had to be served. The news spread quickly across the village. Everyone soon learned about Iyadamu's shocking secret, and the once popular shop became a place no one wanted to visit again. The village would never be the same after the truth was revealed. Iyadamu was taken to the police station, sat there for questioning. Her face was filled with worry and regret, but she knew there was no escaping truth now. The video had exposed everything, and the entire village was against her. The police officer asked sternly, "Iyadamu, why did you do this? You've been feeding people your food for years. Why will you add something horrible to it?" Tears streaming down Iyadamu's face as she began to explain. "It's not what you think. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I did it because of my son, Adamu," she said, her voice trembling. The officer raised an eyebrow. "What does your son have to do with this?" Iyadamu sighed deeply. Her shoulders slumped. "Adamu was very sick when he was a little boy. He would faint often, and the doctors told me that he had 1 week left to live. I was desperate. I took him to many hospitals, but no one could help him." She wiped her tears and continued. "Finally, someone told me to visit an old herbalist in a nearby village. The herbalist told me the only way to save my son was to be cruel to others. I didn't understand at first. I begged for another way, but he insisted that the only cure was to feed people with my fat." The officer frowned in disbelief. "Your fat? How could that possibly cure your son?" Iyadamu nodded, still crying. "That's what I was asked to do. But the herbalist gave me a small drink and said that if I farted on people's food, they would enjoy it without knowing, and in return, my son's life would be saved. He promised that as long as I did this, my son will not die." I was scared, she continued, "but I couldn't bear the thought of losing my only son. So I started the food business. The customers loved the food and no one even suspected what I was doing." The police officer was silent for a moment, then asked, "Why didn't you stop? Adamu has been healthy for years now." Iyadamu shook her head. "I thought I had to keep doing it to keep him alive. I was afraid that if I stopped, he would be sick again. I didn't want to lose him." At that moment, Ngozi and Amina, who had been called to the station as witnesses, walked in. They listened to Iyadamu's confession and felt a mixture of emotion, anger, confusion, and pity. Ngozi stepped forward and asked, So you did this because of the herbalist's advice. You could have told us the truth instead of making us eat something so horrible. Iyadamu looked at her with tearful eyes. I'm sorry, Ngozi. I am truly sorry. I didn't know what else to do. I thought I was saving my son, but now I see that I hurt a lot of people in the process. Amina, who had been silent, finally spoke out. Why didn't you tell anyone? Why did you keep it a secret for so long? Iyadamu explained. The herbalist said I should keep it a secret, and that if anyone find out, that the cure will stop working. That was why I hid it all these years. But now that the truth is out, maybe it's for the best. I can't go on like this anymore. The police officer signed. I understand you were desperate, but what you did was still wrong. People trusted you, and you betrayed their trust. You will have to face the consequences for your actions. Iyadamu nodded sadly. She knew that there was no escaping the punishment. Her heart ached, not just for herself, but for her son and for all the people she had wronged. She would have to face justice, but at least she no longer had to carry the burden of her secret. The village will soon learn the full truth, and while many will be angry, some might come to understand the pain and desperation that drove Iyadamu to what she did. Still, she knew that there was no turning back right now. After Iyadamu's confession, the entire village was in shock. News spread quickly about what she had been doing, farting on the food for so many years. People were disgusted, but as they heard more about her son's illness and the desperation that led her to the herbalist, some began to feel pity for her. At the police station, Iyadamu awaited her sentence. The judge had to decide how to punish her, taking into account that while her actions were wrong, they came from a place of love and fear for her son's life. During the trial, many villagers showed up. Some were angry, while others were curious to hear the full gist. The courtroom was so filled up with murmurs as Iyadamu stood before the judge, her head lowered in shame. The judge began, Iyadamu, you committed a terrible act by contaminating food and deceiving the people of this village. However, we understand that you were in a difficult situation, trying to save your son's life. That doesn't excuse your action, but we must take everything into account. He continued, the punishment for such an act will normally be severe, but given that no one was physically harmed, and the fact that you acted out of desperation for your son, I have decided to show some leniency. The villagers listened closely as the judge announced the sentence. Iyadamu, you will serve 5 years in prison. This is to show that even desperation cannot justify harmful actions. However, your sentence is lighter because of your intent to save your child, and the fact that you did not do this out of malice. As the sentence was read, Iyadamu broke down in tears. She had feared a much harsher punishment, and while 5 years in prison was hard to bear, she understood that she needed to pay for what she had done. After the trial, Ngozi and Amina standing outside the courthouse, talking quietly. They had played a key role in uncovering the truth, and now the whole village knew the story behind Iyadamu's action. Amina, who had been disgusted at first, now felt a little differently. I can't believe all this happened because she wanted to save her son. It's still wrong, but I feel sorry for her. What would any mother do if they thought their child was dying? Ngozi nodded deep in thought. Yeah, it's hard to think about it, but I'm glad we found out the truth. At least now, she won't have to live with that secret anymore. And maybe in time, people will forgive her. Over the next few weeks, as Iyadamu served her sentence, the villager slowly began to heal. Her son Adamu was now free of the sickness. And as time passed, people realized that the cure had actually worked, only because Iyadamu had been caught. The herbalist curse had been lifted, and Iyadamu's strange and painful journey had come to an end. After her release from the prison 5 years later, Iyadamu returned to the village. Her shop had long been closed, and she had lost everything. But instead of anger, she met with something surprisingly understanding. The people of the village, after many years, had softened their hearts. They remembered that Iyadamu's action was out of a mother's love, not out of cruelty. Some even came to her and told her they had forgiven her. Ngozi and Amina, who had once been disgusted and horrified, were were among the first to welcome her back. Iyadamu, humbled and grateful, apologized to everyone once more. She promised never to harm anyone again and hoped that the village would find it in their heart to let go of the past. The village, although forever changed by the strange event, forgave her over time. Iyadamu lived quietly after that, helping Adamu, her son, who had grown into a strong young man. She never returned to selling food, but she found peace knowing that the sickness had left her son forever. And so the story of Iyadamu became a tale passed down through the village, a story of desperation, forgiveness, and the length mother would go for her child.